shopping kind of thing when the element of surprise is used. And obviously that can be a very good method for an assessment. Not always necessarily, but once in a while, you know, managed by wandering around works sometimes as an observation. So, so basically there are times it's used and there are times it's not. That's the bottom line. So you're both right.
This is the time when you wouldn't give notification, because usually when you do an assessment, you're going to require someone else's time.
Yes.
And so how are you going to get that if you don't
Correct.
plan ahead?
Correct, unless it's observation only, or unless it's a desk audit where you've taken the documents back and you're studying them against criteria. But if any time it involves people, yes, you are going to be taking up their time. Good point. Yes, Liz.
The food industry is regulated by the FDA. They can start at any time, so,
Okay.
so those are unannounced.
Those are
And
unannounced.
so they do, yes, they do take your time, and they're going to take their time whether it's announced or not. So
There's an example that sometimes you have no control.
you have no control.
Okay, good.
On that same note, there's some.
Okay, and that takes us to the next slide. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, on that same note, sometimes it depends on what you're auditing, that they need to know you're coming to change procedure to get through a secure area.
True, exactly. Very true. If you're in a secured area, there will have to be notification. Yeah, good point.
You don't knock out the audit with 2 weeks' notice.
Then it's a 2 week. Okay, so, okay, when should we audit? Okay, well, when our assessment schedule tells us to, and of course, any good assessment program would have an assessment schedule to make sure that all your functional areas have an audit at least once a year, if not more. When oops, I pushed the wrong one. Sorry. Go back. What happened here? Oh, that was it. Okay. All right, I'll be more careful. Okay. All right, whenever an issue occurs. Okay, so you're at work and oh gosh, everybody's talking about what happened yesterday, right? It's like, oh my gosh. Well, gee, as a quality person, you should say, ding, somebody should be assessing this, right? Following up, right? A failure, obviously. An accident, absolutely. A negative finding. If the food and drug group comes and they have a negative finding, you bet you're going to run a self-assessment. And to investigate an OFI. Okay, we all know OFI, right? Opportunity for improvement. Okay, you're over there auditing and one of your staff comes up and says, you know, if we did it this way, it would be so much better. It's like, you know what? They've got a good point. I'm going to investigate this. I'm going to do an audit. I'm going to take this time and assess it because they could be giving us a brilliant idea here, right? So an assessment is a really good time when you hear an opportunity for an improvement come through.
There's another time when you assess is when you're standing a new function or a new process or a new capability. Sometimes you have to do a baseline assessment.
Baseline assessment.
Something that doesn't exist.
Right?
And so that's another reason.
That's a good one. And you're right, I don't have that. That's a very good one.
Yeah, there's a whole class there of readiness review concepts.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Produce, design, manufacture, all of that.
And just a little rule of thumb here, the higher the importance, the higher the risk, then the higher the frequency should be to self-assess, right? If you've got something that you're really worrying about, just remember that little phrase, the higher the importance, the higher the risk, the higher the frequency to self-assess. Okay, little nursery rhyme here. Okay, now, you know what to self-assess, when to self-assess. Now, who should be self-assessing, right? All right. Has everyone in here at least tried a self-assessment once? Yeah. So you're kind of familiar with it. It can be a little daunting at first, you know, and especially when they go, here comes the quality cops, right? And, you know, you have to get past that, right? You have to teach them that, no.
Or carry it next day.
We're here to learn. We're here to learn. So you should have a training program for your internal assessors. And it doesn't have to be extensive. It can be pretty basic, but you have to give them some of the fundamental tools they're going to need when they go to do this assessment. Internal audit teams, they can be trained. I used to run a training program for an internal audit team. I would have 10 sessions, 45 minutes a session. They would come once a week for 10 weeks. They would practice. I'd give them assignments. They'd come back. They'd learn. You know, it didn't have to be a huge amount of time. Just kind of regularly starting to get it into their heads, start to practice, see how it feels for them, see what they run into, talk about it as a group. Little therapy sessions afterwards are sometimes necessary. Leaders, you know, leaders think they know how to assess, but do they? No. So we as quality professionals, we have to say, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Leader, could you please, you know, kind of review this with us? We'd like to have a consistency in how we self-assess at our operation. Would you mind, please, you know, going through this with us so that if you were to assess, or if you were being assessed, you know that this is our process, this is our pattern of behavior when it comes to assessment. So everybody in the playing field should know the process of a self-assessment. All right, let's pause for a minute, talk about conflict of interest. Internal assessors, now, I'm not like a big worrisome person when it comes to conflict of interest. I mean, if somebody wants to assess themselves against a process, let them try. You know, let them get out the process and say, yep, I did that, yep, I did that, yep, I did that. Let them really tune into the process. If they want to say, okay, I'll assess you if you assess me doing this process, okay. You know, so is that a conflict of interest? No, it's part of the learning. So I'm talking with conflict of interest is when you're getting into the big time compliance stuff. Then you have to be careful. But self-assessments in the learning phase doesn't have to be, you don't have to worry so much about it. We're here to learn. We're here to help. We're here to identify, oh, gee, we haven't been doing this right. Or, gee, we need to change the process because we have new software and we don't do it that way anymore. Whatever way it works, the thing is you want more assessments helping you, not less critical assessments, more ground floor assessments, right? Because that's how you build this learning. People get interested in saying what's on their mind. They get practice documenting it. And so conflict of interest is important when you're talking formal compliance audits. But there's nothing wrong with people assessing their own processes or helping one another.
It would seem in an internal audit that there ought not to be conflict of interest.
Well,
By definition. External audit, different thing.
Different thing. Yeah. I have no, and I've worked places where they team up and departments will audit each other. It's like, well, we'll audit your department if you audit ours, and there's nothing wrong with that, really.
Cuts way down on
Because
top.
this isn't, you know, life and death. This is about learning.
And it cuts way down on the quality police mentality.
It does, absolutely. Okay, so one of the things we talk about when people are new to assessing is that there are certain skills that they've got to think about. And this is what you would practice in those 45-minute sessions when you train your internal auditors. Okay, so personal attributes. All right, well, you want somebody that's curious, right? You want somebody that likes to think about things and get in there and say, well, how do you do it? I've never seen this before. Show me how you do it. You know, you want people that are kind of inquisitive, right? Analytical, trustworthy, open-minded, right? We don't want biased people trying to say, well, that department, I always hated that department, right? Those people you don't need. So you will find in every company, you will find these type of people. And they make fantastic internal assessments, right? You all know people in your staff like this. and they love to learn. And this is a great